Hello everyone, and welcome back to the English Hour. Today, I'm excited to have Jacob with me. Hey Jacob, how are you doing today?
Hi, Sophia. I'm doing great, thank you. It's always a pleasure to join you on the English Hour.
Same here. So Jacob, let's start by telling our listeners a bit about yourself. What do you do and what brought you here today?
Sure, I'm a language enthusiast and a teacher. I love exploring different cultures and helping people improve their English skills. I'm here to have a long, fun conversation with you and our audience.
That sounds wonderful. Our listeners are always looking for practical ways to improve their English. What do you think is the biggest challenge for English learners?
In my experience, the biggest challenge is confidence. Many learners know the grammar and vocabulary, but hesitate to speak because they're afraid of making mistakes.
Yes, I totally agree. Mistakes are a natural part of learning any language, right?
Absolutely, making mistakes helps us learn faster. It's important to create a comfortable environment where learners feel safe to practice speaking without judgment.
Speaking of practice, what are some effective ways you recommend for learners to practice speaking English every day?
One simple way is to talk to yourself in English. Describe your day, your plans, or even what you're cooking. It sounds a bit funny, but it works.
Haha, I do that sometimes. Another method I like is shadowing listening to native speakers and repeating exactly what they say, including their intonation and rhythm.
Shadowing is excellent. It improves pronunciation and helps learners get used to the flow of natural English.
What about listening? How important is it to listen a lot when learning English?
Listening is crucial. It builds your understanding of different accents, speeds, and vocabulary. The more you listen, the easier it is to speak.
That's why we always encourage our listeners to watch movies, listen to podcasts, and even music in English, right?
Exactly. And don't worry if you don't understand everything at first. Keep listening regularly, and gradually your comprehension will improve.
Now, what about reading? How does reading help with English learning?
Reading expands vocabulary and improves grammar naturally. When you read, you see how words are used in context, which helps you remember them better.
I love reading simple stories or news articles in English. It's a great way to learn new words without feeling overwhelmed.
Yes, starting with easier texts is key. You don't want to get frustrated with something too difficult.
And writing. Do you think writing is important for English learners?
Definitely. Writing helps you organize your thoughts in English and reinforces grammar and vocabulary.
Some people say they're afraid of writing because they worry about mistakes. What would you tell them?
I would say don't be afraid. Writing is practice, just like speaking. The more you write, the better you get. You can start with short sentences or even keep a daily journal.
That's a great idea. A journal can be very personal and safe.
Exactly. It's your private space to experiment with new words and ideas.
Let's talk about motivation. Learning a language can be a long journey. How do you stay motivated?
I think setting small, achievable goals helps. For example, learning 5 new words a day or watching one English video daily.
Breaking it down into small goals makes it less overwhelming.
Right? And rewarding yourself when you reach those goals keeps the motivation going.
What kind of rewards do you suggest?
Something simple, like watching your favorite movie, taking a break, or sharing your progress with friends.
Sharing progress is powerful. It creates accountability.
Exactly. And it also connects you with others who can support your learning journey.
Do you recommend joining English speaking communities?
Absolutely, online forums, language exchange apps, or local clubs are great places to practice and make friends.
I love how technology has made language learning so accessible.
Me too. There's so much free content and interactive tools available now.
What about pronunciation? Many learners struggle with sounds that don't exist in their native language.
Pronunciation can be tricky. My advice is to listen carefully to native speakers and try to imitate their mouth movements and sounds.
Can you give us an example of a common pronunciation mistake and how to fix it?
One common mistake is mixing up the sound like in think or this with or d sounds.
Yes, that's a tough one for many learners.
To practice, place your tongue gently between your teeth and blow air out for the th sound. It feels strange at first, but with practice, it becomes natural.
That's a useful tip. What about intonation and stress in sentences?
Intonation is very important. It changes the meaning and emotion of what you say. Stressing the right words helps your listener understand your message better.
Can you give an example?
Sure, the sentence, "I didn't say he stole the money," can mean different things depending on which word you stress.
Interesting. Can you show us how?
Of course. For example, "I didn't say he stole the money" implies someone else said it. "I didn't say he stole the money" means you didn't say it, maybe you wrote it. "I didn't say he stole the money" suggests you implied it but didn't say it outright, and so on. Each stress changes the meaning.
Wow, that's fascinating. English is full of these nuances.
Exactly. That's why practicing with native speakers or listening a lot helps.
Speaking of native speakers, do you think it's necessary to speak with them to become fluent?
It's very helpful but not absolutely necessary. You can learn a lot by listening to native content and practicing speaking regularly.
That's reassuring. Some learners don't have access to native speakers.
True. In that case, practicing with fellow learners or language tutors is a good alternative.
What about slang and idioms? Should learners try to learn them?
Yes, but with caution. It's good to know common idioms and slang to understand everyday conversations and media, but beginners should focus on basic vocabulary first.
Can you share a few useful idioms for our listeners?
Sure, here are some break the ice. To start a conversation in a social setting, hit the nail on the head. To describe exactly what is causing a situation, piece of cake, something very easy.
Those are great. I love how idioms add color to the language.
Me too. They make conversations more interesting.
Now, let's talk about exams. Many learners want to prepare for tests like IELTS or TOEFL. Any tips for that?
My best tip is to practice all four skills: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Also, familiarize yourself with the test format.
Time management is important during exams too, right?
Absolutely. Practice with timed tests to improve your speed and confidence.
What about stress on exam day?
Stay calm and positive. Remember, these tests measure your current level, not your worth as a person.
Such an important reminder. Before we wrap up this part, what's one piece of advice you want every English learner to remember?
Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Every mistake is a step closer to fluency.
Beautifully said, Jacob. Thank you so much for sharing your insights today.
Thank you, Sophia. It's been a pleasure talking with you and your listeners.
And thank you to everyone who's listening. We'll be back soon with more English learning tips and conversations. Let's dive deeper, Jacob. Many learners wonder how to improve their vocabulary quickly. What strategies do you recommend?
Great question, Sophia. One effective way is to learn words in context, not just isolated lists. For example, read a sentence or a story where the new word appears.
That makes sense, because seeing how a word is used helps you remember it better.
Exactly. Also, try to use new words in your own sentences or conversations soon after learning them.
So active use helps solidify the vocabulary in your memory.
Yes, and spaced repetition apps like Anki or Quizlet are very helpful for reviewing vocabulary regularly.
I've heard of those. They remind you to review words just before you might forget them.
Right. That technique strengthens your long-term memory.
What about collocations? They seem tricky for learners.
Collocations are words that often go together, like make a decision or take a break. Learning them helps you sound more natural.
How can learners practice collocations?
Reading and listening are the best ways. Also, keep a special notebook or digital list of collocations you come across.
That's a useful tip. Now, what do you think about learning grammar? Should learners focus on it heavily?
Grammar is important, but it shouldn't stop you from speaking or writing. Focus on the grammar you need to communicate effectively.
So, not perfection at first, but functional grammar.
Exactly. Over time, you can refine your grammar as you get more exposure and practice.
Many learners ask about idiomatic expressions. You mentioned a few earlier, but how should someone learn them?
Listen to native speakers in movies, TV shows, and podcasts. When you hear an idiom, try to understand the meaning from context.
And then, maybe write it down or practice using it in sentences.
Yes, using idioms in your own speech or writing helps make them stick.
Let's switch gears a bit. What role does culture play in learning a language?
Culture is deeply connected to language. Understanding cultural references helps you understand jokes, idioms, and social norms.
That's true. Sometimes learners get confused by jokes or expressions without cultural knowledge.
Right? For example, understanding holidays, customs, or popular TV shows in English speaking countries gives more meaning to conversations.
Do you suggest any cultural activities for learners?
Watching movies, listening to music, reading about holidays, or even trying to cook dishes from English speaking countries are fun ways.
I love that. It makes learning enjoyable and more immersive.
Exactly. When you enjoy the process, you stay motivated longer.
Speaking of motivation, sometimes learners face burnout. How can they overcome it?
Taking breaks is important. Don't force yourself to study for long hours if you're tired.
Balance is key.
Yes, and try changing your learning activities. If you're tired of grammar books, switch to watching a movie or playing language games.
Variety keeps things fresh.
Definitely. Also, remind yourself why you started learning English and think about your progress.
Reflection can be very motivating.
For sure. Celebrate small wins, like understanding a song lyric or having a short conversation.
Let's talk about accents. Some learners want to sound exactly like native speakers, but others want to keep their own accent. What do you think?
I believe clarity is more important than having a native-like accent.
So the goal is to be understood clearly.
Exactly. It's great to work on pronunciation, but don't stress about completely changing your accent.
That's encouraging for many learners.
Yes. Your accent is part of your identity, and English is a global language spoken by millions of people with different accents.
That's a beautiful perspective. What about idioms or slang that might be regional? Should learners try to learn those?
It depends on your goals. If you plan to live or work in a specific country, learning local expressions is helpful.
But if your goal is general communication, basic idioms are enough.
Focus on widely understood expressions first.
Now, for learners preparing for speaking tests, what are some quick tips to improve fluency?
Practice speaking regularly, even if just to yourself. Record yourself and listen back to notice areas for improvement.
That's a great self-feedback method.
Also, learn to use fillers naturally, like or actually. They make your speech sound more natural.
Many learners avoid fillers, thinking they're bad, but they actually help with fluency.
Yes, used in moderation, they help you keep talking while thinking.
What about pauses during speech? Should learners try to avoid them?
Pauses are okay, especially when used to emphasize a point or to gather thoughts.
So it's about using pauses effectively, not trying to speak nonstop.
Natural speech has rhythm with pauses.
Shall we talk about idioms related to emotions? Those are very useful.
Here are a few. Over the moon, very happy. Feeling blue, feeling sad. On cloud nine, extremely joyful.
Those are expressive and fun to use.
Yes, they help convey feelings vividly.
Many learners ask about phrasal verbs. They seem complicated. What advice do you have?
Phrasal verbs are tricky because the meaning often isn't literal. The best way to learn them is by reading and listening in context.
Can you share some common phrasal verbs?
Sure, look after means to take care of. Give up means to stop trying. Turn on means to switch on something.
Those are very useful in everyday conversations.
Yes, and don't try to memorize too many at once. Learn a few and practice them.
Let's talk about reading strategies. What kind of text should learners start with?
Start with graded readers or simple articles like news for English learners.
And how can they improve reading speed?
Practice regularly and avoid translating every word. Try to understand the general meaning instead.
That's a helpful tip. What about guessing meanings from context?
Very important skill. Look for clues around the unknown word to infer its meaning.
Okay, Jacob, let's discuss speaking confidence. How can shy learners overcome fear?
Start small. Practice speaking with close friends or language partners who are patient.
Gradual exposure helps reduce anxiety.
Exactly. Also, prepare some common phrases or topics beforehand.
Preparation builds confidence.
And remember, everyone makes mistakes. Native speakers are usually very understanding.
That's reassuring for many learners.
Yes, the key is to keep trying and not give up.
Shall we move on to technology tools? How can apps and online resources help learners?
They offer great opportunities to practice anytime, anywhere. For example, language exchange apps let you chat with native speakers.
What about online courses or YouTube channels?
Those are fantastic for structured learning and exposure to different accents and topics.
Any recommendations for apps?
Duolingo, HelloTalk, and Memrise are popular. Also, watching English movies with subtitles on YouTube is a good way to learn.
It's amazing how much free content is available.
Yes, and learners should explore different types to find what works best for them.
Now, about cultural etiquette in English. Speaking countries, anything learners should know.
Politeness is very important. Saying, please, thank you, and excuse me goes a long way.
Also, respecting personal space and punctuality are valued, right?
Yes, and small talk about weather or hobbies is common when meeting someone new.
These details make social interactions smoother.
Definitely.
What about humor? English jokes can be hard to understand.
Humor often depends on wordplay and cultural references. Listening to comedy shows or reading jokes helps, but don't be discouraged if you don't get all of them at first.
True, humor can be one of the toughest things to master.
But it's also one of the most fun parts of learning a language.
Agreed. Let's keep the conversation going, shall we?
Absolutely, Sophia. Speaking of fun, have you noticed how music plays a huge role in learning English?
Oh yes, songs are great because they help with pronunciation, rhythm, and even slang.
Right? And singing along helps internalize phrases naturally.
Do you have any favorite songs or artists you recommend for learners?
I'd say start with clear lyrics. Artists like Ed Sheeran or Adele are great. Their songs tell stories, so it's easier to follow.
And maybe songs with repetition to help memorize new words.
Exactly, repetitive choruses are like natural flashcards.
What about rap or fast songs? Are they too difficult?
They can be challenging at first, but once you get used to the rhythm, they're great for improving listening skills.
That's true. Some learners enjoy that challenge.
Another thing, watching music videos can give cultural context, like gestures or fashion.
So it's like a cultural lesson and language practice combined.
Yes, and you can pause, look up words, and sing along.
Let's talk about writing. Many learners want to improve their writing skills. What's your advice?
Practice writing regularly, even short paragraphs or journal entries.
Should learners focus on grammar or expression more?
Both are important, but expressing your ideas clearly is the main goal.
How can learners check their grammar when writing?
Online tools like Grammarly are helpful, but don't rely on them completely.
So also learning rules and asking teachers or native speakers for feedback.
Definitely. Feedback is key to improvement.
What about writing styles? How do learners learn different types like formal and informal?
Reading examples is the best way. Notice how emails, essays, or texts have different tones and vocabulary.
That's helpful. Should learners practice both?
Yes, because different situations call for different styles.
Let's move on to listening skills. What can learners do to improve listening comprehension?
Listen actively and often. Start with slow, clear English podcasts or videos.
And use subtitles at first.
Yes, but try to win off subtitles gradually.
How about shadowing? Is that a good technique?
Very good. Repeat what you hear immediately to practice pronunciation and rhythm.
That sounds challenging but effective.
It's challenging but builds confidence quickly.
Are there any common pitfalls learners should avoid?
One is expecting to understand everything immediately. Listening is a skill developed over time.
Patience is important, then.
Absolutely. Another is getting discouraged when you miss words. Focus on the main idea instead.
That's reassuring advice. Now, Jacob, many learners want to improve their speaking by having conversations, but they don't have anyone to practice with. What do you suggest?
Try language exchange partners online or join local clubs or meetups if possible.
What if someone is too shy to speak with strangers?
Start by speaking to yourself or recording short monologues about your day.
That's a good way to build confidence.
Also, online chatbots that speak can be useful practice.
Technology really opens doors for language practice.
Yes, and watching movies with subtitles, then trying to summarize the story out loud, can also be a helpful exercise.
Let's talk about test preparation. Many learners prepare for IELTS, TOEFL, or other exams. What tips do you have?
Understand the exam format well and practice each section separately.
Are there strategies for managing time during the exam?
Yes, practice under timed conditions and learn to skip difficult questions and return later.
What about speaking tests? How can learners perform better?
Speak clearly and confidently. If you don't know a word, describe it instead of stopping.
That's a great strategy to keep the conversation flowing.
Yes, examiners value fluency and communication over perfect grammar.
Do you recommend mock exams?
Definitely. They build familiarity and reduce test anxiety.
We've covered a lot so far. Do you think technology will change how people learn English in the future?
Absolutely. AI and virtual reality will make immersive learning more accessible.
Imagine virtual classrooms or conversations with AI avatars.
It will make practicing speaking anytime, anywhere much easier.
But do you think technology can replace human teachers?
No, human interaction and feedback are still essential for nuanced learning.
So the future will be a blend of tech and personal guidance.
Exactly. The key is to use technology as a tool, not a replacement.
What advice would you give to learners who want to reach fluency faster?
Immerse yourself as much as possible. Surround yourself with English in daily life.
Like changing device languages to English or thinking in English.
Yes. Also, don't fear making mistakes, they are part of learning.
So practice consistently and stay motivated.
Exactly. And find joy in the learning journey.
Jacob, before we continue, what's your favorite English word or phrase?
I really like serendipity. It sounds beautiful and means finding something good without looking for it.
That's a lovely word. Mine is wanderlust, the desire to travel and explore.
Perfect for language learners who love to discover new cultures.
Absolutely. Shall we explore more on culture and language next?
Yes, I'd love that. Let's dive into cultural idioms and their stories.
Great. For example, the phrase, break the ice. Do you know where it comes from?
Yes, it originally referred to ships breaking ice to make way for others, symbolizing starting a conversation or easing tension.
Fascinating how history shapes language.
Exactly. Another is spill the beans, meaning to reveal a secret.
That one always makes me smile.
And hit the sack means to go to sleep.
Such colorful expressions.
They make English vibrant and fun.
Do you find idioms harder or easier to learn than phrasal verbs?
They're similar, but idioms are often less literal, which can confuse learners.
Practice and exposure again, right?
Always.
Now, let's talk about English for specific purposes. For example, business English. What should learners focus on?
Clear communication, formal vocabulary, and common phrases for meetings and emails.
Any common mistakes?
Using overly casual language or idioms in formal situations.
So knowing when to use formal or informal English is important.
Yes, and practicing writing formal emails is very helpful.
How about travel English?
Focus on phrases for directions, shopping, ordering food, and emergencies.
Simple and practical language.
Exactly. Role-playing these situations helps.
Shall we discuss the importance of pronunciation?
Sure, good pronunciation helps others understand you and builds your confidence.
What about accents? Should learners aim for a particular one?
No need to imitate a specific accent. Clarity is more important.
What techniques improve pronunciation?
Listening carefully, repeating after native speakers, and recording yourself.
Tongue twisters can help too.
Yes, they train your mouth muscles.
Great. Would you like to share a favorite tongue twister?
Sure, she sells seashells by the seashore.
Classic. Let's keep going with pronunciation tips next.
Sounds good. Also, practicing intonation and stress patterns is crucial.
That's how native speakers convey emotions and meaning.
Exactly. It's not just the words, but how you say them.
This is fascinating. I think listeners will love these insights.
I hope so too. Learning English is a journey, and there's always something new to explore.
Absolutely. Shall we talk about how to set language goals?
Yes, setting clear, achievable goals keeps you motivated.
Like learn 10 new words a day, or have one conversation per week.
Exactly. And review your progress regularly.
Adjust goals if needed.
Yes, be flexible but consistent.
That's great advice.
Also, reward yourself when you meet goals to stay motivated.
Positive reinforcement.
Definitely.
Now, let's explore how to handle difficult grammar points.
Break them down into small parts and practice each separately.
Use examples and practice exercises.
Yes, and try to use the grammar in your own writing and speaking.
What about confusing tenses like present perfect?
Understand the difference between completed actions and those with relevance to now.
Examples help clarify.
Exactly. Using timelines or visual aids can also help.
These tips will surely help our learners.
I hope so. Learning a language is all about practice and patience.
Shall we pause here and continue with pronunciation exercises next?
Sounds perfect.
Great. Let's start with some common pronunciation challenges for learners, like this sound. Many people find it tricky.
Yes, the sound is difficult because it's not common in many languages. It can be voiced, like in this, or unvoiced, like in think.
How can learners practice making the sound correctly?
Place your tongue gently between your teeth and blow air out. For the voice sound, add your vocal cords.
That's a good tip. What about words where th is silent?
Some words like clothes or ballot have silent letters. Listening carefully and repeating helps.
What other sounds are challenging?
V and dowel is common. For example, vest, west.
How can learners improve on that?
Try to feel the vibration on your lips with V and the round shape of lips for W.
And their sound.
English, R, is pronounced differently than in many languages. Curl your tongue back slightly without touching the roof of your mouth.
Can you give us a practice sentence?
Sure, red roses really radiate.
Let's try another the L sound.
The sound can be light or dark. The light L is at the start of words like light, and the dark L at the end like full.
Interesting. What about vowel sounds?
English has many vowel sounds which can be confusing. For example, ship and sheep have different vowels.
What's the best way to master vowels?
Listen and repeat minimal pairs, words that differ by one sound to train your ear.
Can you give examples of minimal pairs?
And cut, bit, and beat.
These exercises sound very useful.
They are also watching native speakers and imitating their mouth movements helps.
Let's discuss stress and intonation now. Why are they important?
Because they change meaning and make speech sound natural.
Can you give an example?
Sure. The word record can be a noun or a verb depending on stress. Record, noun, record, a verb.
That's a great example. How about intonation in questions?
Yes, rising intonation is common in yes, no questions, while questions usually have falling intonation.
How can learners practice intonation?
Mimic native speakers, use recordings, and practice speaking with expression.
Shall we try some example sentences?
Yes, let's do it. For rising intonation, are you coming?
And falling intonation. Where are you going?
Perfect intonation helps listeners understand your emotions and intent.
Absolutely. Moving on, what about rhythm and linking sounds?
English rhythm is stress-timed, so some syllables are longer and louder.
And linking.
Linking connects sounds between words like go on, sounding like go one.
Can you share some common linking examples?
Sure, want to sounds like wanna. Going to sounds like gonna.
That's helpful for sounding natural.
Definitely. Practicing with songs or speeches can help learners catch these patterns.
Shall we do some tongue twisters to practice rhythm and linking?
Let's do it. How about how much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood?
That's a classic. Another one. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers.
These are fun and improve clarity.
Moving on, let's discuss vocabulary building strategies. What works best?
Reading regularly and writing down new words is effective.
Using flashcards or apps.
Yes, apps like Anki or Quizlet help with spaced repetition.
How can learners remember words better?
By using them in sentences, conversations, and connecting them to images or stories.
So active usage is key.
Passive recognition isn't enough.
What about learning collocations?
Very important, collocations are words that often go together, like make a decision or take a break.
How can learners practice collocations?
Read texts and highlight phrases, then try to use them yourself.
Let's discuss idioms again. How should learners approach them?
Learn idioms one at a time, understand their meaning and context, and try to use them in speaking or writing.
Should learners avoid overusing idioms?
Yes, overuse can confuse listeners. Use them naturally.
Good advice. Now, how about English slang and informal language?
It's useful to understand slang for casual conversations, but learners should be careful using it in formal settings.
Where can learners find reliable slang?
TV shows, movies, and trusted websites.
Let's move to reading strategies. How can learners improve reading skills?
Read regularly, choose interesting topics, and practice skimming and scanning.
What's the difference between skimming and scanning?
Skimming is reading quickly for general idea. Scanning is searching for specific information.
Great. Should learners use dictionaries while reading?
Use them sparingly. Guess meaning from context first.
That helps keep flow and comprehension.
Exactly.
Let's talk about note taking while reading.
Writing summaries or key points helps retention,
That makes reading active and effective.
right?
Shall we discuss how to improve writing clarity
Yes, use simple, direct sentences and avoid unnecessary words.
and organize ideas logically?
Very important, use paragraphs and linking words.
Examples of linking words.
Words like however, therefore. In addition,
How about proofreading tips?
take breaks before proofreading, read aloud, and check one type of error at a time.
These techniques help catch mistakes.
Definitely.
Now, what about building confidence in speaking?
Practice regularly, start with familiar topics, and focus on communicating ideas rather than perfection.
How to deal with nervousness?
Deep breathing, positive self-talk, and preparation.
Great tips. Shall we talk about cultural aspects in language learning next?
Yes, culture and language are closely connected.
Understanding culture helps avoid misunderstandings.
Exactly, and it enriches communication.
Can you give examples of cultural differences affecting communication?
Sure, like how directness is valued in some cultures but seen as rude in others.
Or gestures having different meanings?
Yes, the thumbs up sign is positive in some places but offensive in others.
So cultural awareness is important.
Very much so.
Let's explore humor in English. How important is it for language learners?
Humor helps connect with people, but can be difficult because of wordplay or cultural references.
How can learners understand jokes better?
Exposure to English comedy and asking for explanations.
Should learners try telling jokes?
Yes, it builds confidence and understanding.
What about slang and humor?
Slang often appears in jokes, so learning it helps.
Shall we share a simple joke to practice?
Sure, why did the Scarecrow win an award? Because he was outstanding in his field.
Perfect. That's a light, hearted way to practice.
Definitely.
Now, how about discussing language learning myths?
Good idea. Many learners believe you must be young to learn a language well.
Which is not true, right?
Exactly. Adults can learn very effectively with the right methods.
Another myth.
That making mistakes is bad,
Mistakes are part of learning.
right? Also, some think they need to live abroad to become fluent.
But immersion can happen anywhere.
Yes, with effort and creativity.
This is very encouraging. Let's continue with strategies for self-study.
Set regular study times, mix skills, and use diverse resources.
Balance between reading, writing, listening, and speaking.
And track progress.
What about motivation?
Set personal goals and remind yourself why you started.
Positive mindset is key.
Always.
Jacob, shall we explore how travel experiences can enhance language learning?
Absolutely. Traveling forces you to use English in real situations.
It builds confidence and practical skills.
Yes, and exposes you to different accents and cultures.
How can learners prepare before traveling?
Learn key phrases and practice listening.
And keep a travel journal in English.
Great idea, it improves writing and memory.
These are wonderful tips.
Thank you.
We've covered so many topics already.
Yes, but there's always more to discuss.
Should we explore learning English through storytelling next?
Perfect. Stories are memorable and help with vocabulary and grammar.
How can learners use stories effectively?
Listen or read, then retell the story in your own words.
This practice improves speaking and comprehension.
Yes, and encourages creativity.
Would you like to share a favorite story or type,
I love fables, they teach lessons simply.
like Aesop's fables?
Exactly. The Tortoise and the Hare is a classic
Great choice. Stories with morals are easy to remember.
and fun to discuss.
Shall we share a short fable for practice?
Yes, let me start. Once upon a time, a hare mocked a slow tortoise.
I'm looking forward to that. Let's keep going with storytelling and its benefits.
The hare was very proud of his speed and laughed at the tortoise's slow pace.
But the tortoise, calm and steady, challenged the hare to a race.
The hare agreed, confident he would win easily.
During the race, the hare ran fast and decided to take a nap midway.
Meanwhile, the tortoise kept moving steadily without stopping.
When the hare woke up, he was shocked to see the tortoise near the finish line.
The tortoise crossed first and won the race.
The moral is slow and steady wins the race.
This story teaches persistence and humility.
How can learners use fables like this in their practice?
They can read or listen to the story, then summarize it or act it out.
Acting out helps with pronunciation and expression.
Yes, it also makes learning fun.
Storytelling can also improve understanding of tenses and sentence structure, right?
Absolutely. Different stories use various tenses, helping learners notice grammar and context.
Are there resources you recommend for English learners to find good stories?
Websites like Storynory, BBC Learning English's story section, and graded readers are excellent.
And audiobooks too.
Yes, especially with transcripts to follow along.
Do you suggest learners create their own stories?
Definitely. Writing or telling their own stories encourages creativity and language use.
What about group storytelling activities?
They're great for practicing speaking and listening, and for social interaction.
Should learners focus on accuracy or fluency in storytelling?
Fluency first, then work on accuracy gradually.
That reduces stress and builds confidence.
Exactly.
Jacob, what role does technology play in storytelling for language learners?
Technology offers tools like story apps, recording devices, and platforms to share stories.
Can recording oneself telling a story help?
Yes, learners can hear their own mistakes and progress.
What about storytelling podcasts?
Listening to storytelling podcasts helps learners hear natural language flow.
Are there favorite storytelling podcasts for English learners?
The English We Speak by BBC and Storynory are popular.
Let's explore how stories help with cultural understanding.
Stories reflect culture, values, and traditions, giving learners insight beyond language.
Can you give an example?
For example, fairy tales often show cultural ideas about family, courage, or honesty.
That's fascinating.
It connects language learning with cultural awareness.
How can learners choose culturally appropriate stories?
Start with universal themes, then explore stories from English-speaking countries.
Do you recommend comparing stories from different cultures?
Yes, it highlights similarities and differences, enriching learning.
Storytelling seems like a powerful tool.
Uh,
Let's now talk about English for specific purposes, like business or travel.
Good idea. English for Business focuses on formal communication, emails, presentations.
What skills are important in business English?
Clear writing, polite phrases, and professional vocabulary.
How about travel English?
It focuses on useful phrases for airports, hotels, directions.
Can learners prepare by practicing role plays?
Absolutely. Role plays simulate real situations.
What about technical English for fields like medicine or IT?
Specialized vocabulary and comprehension skills are key.
How can learners improve in specialized English?
Use industry materials, read articles, and learn jargon gradually.
Do you suggest any resources?
Yes, websites like BBC Business English or medical journals for learners.
Shall we explore tips for improving listening skills?
Listening is challenging because of accents, speed, and slang.
What's the best way to practice listening?
Listen often to varied sources like podcasts, movies, news.
Should learners use transcripts?
Transcripts help understand difficult parts.
What about shadowing?
Shadowing, repeating immediately after hearing, improves pronunciation and rhythm.
Do you recommend watching with or without subtitles?
Start with subtitles, then gradually remove them.
What role does active listening play?
Active listening means focusing and trying to understand meaning, not just words.
That's very helpful. What about note taking during listening?
It trains memory and focuses attention.
Jacob, shall we discuss strategies for overcoming the fear of speaking?
Yes, it's common but can be managed.
What do you recommend?
Practice with friends or language partners. Prepare topics. And remember that mistakes are normal.
How does mindset affect speaking?
A positive mindset encourages risk taking and persistence.
Should learners record themselves speaking?
Yes, it helps identify strengths and weaknesses.
Can speaking clubs or language exchanges help?
Absolutely, they provide safe spaces to practice.
Let's talk about using English in daily life.
Integrate English by labeling items, thinking in English, or keeping a diary.
Using technology like voice assistants.
Yes, speaking to Siri or Alexa can build confidence.
Playing English games.
Games are fun and teach vocabulary and grammar.
How about watching YouTube channels for learners?
Channels like English Addict or BBC Learning English are great.
Should learners set daily goals?
Definitely. Even 10 minutes a day helps.
This makes learning manageable.
Consistency beats intensity.
Finally, let's talk about the importance of patience in language learning.
Learning a language takes time and effort.
What should learners remember when progress feels slow?
That every small step counts and setbacks are normal.
Celebrating small wins helps maintain motivation.
Exactly. Persistence leads to success.
We've covered so much today.
Yes, and I hope listeners find these tips useful.
We'll continue exploring more topics in upcoming episodes.
It's been great sharing these ideas with you all. Remember, learning English is a journey, not a race.
Absolutely, Jacob. Keep practicing, stay curious, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. They're part of learning.
And if you keep at it every day, you'll see progress before you know it.
Thanks so much for joining us today on the English Hour. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe to support the channel.
And don't forget to leave your questions and topics you'd like us to cover in the comments below.
We'll see you next time with more English learning tips and conversations.
Until then, keep speaking, keep listening, and keep enjoying English.
Goodbye for now, everyone.
Goodbye.